Welcome to SMU. My name is Masrongwira and I'm here with Emmanuel Kionga. Today we'll be talking about the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Trade Slave in conjunction with the UN. So Emmanuel, what do you know about the history of slavery?
First of all, when we speak about the history of slavery, we need to first understand the true meaning of history. If we define history, history is the study of past events. But that's not how I define it. I define history as the study of past events relating them to the present in order to predict the future. So if we are to speak about the history of slavery, we need to understand what role does slavery play in the present day and what role will slavery play in the future. So if we are to unpack slavery, we need to understand its impact on our present and the future. So your question, what do you know about the history of slavery? I think slavery started in Africa here when the colonizers came. They took our people by force, but the real intention of slavery was economic reasons, because slave trade is a trading. I give you a human being in exchange for money. So the main aim was really economical, where they took our people to Europe for them to work, labor force. They were forced to work for the white masters. And yeah, that's the history of slavery as I know it.
Okay. And then how do you feel about the latest activities taking place in Libya?
Um, well, what's happening in Libya is not a new thing to me or to us. It's something that's been happening all around the world. It's just that Libya has managed to expose it to the world. But that's what's happening in Libya is happening in Italy, in so many countries. It's just that governments hide it. They don't want to speak to expose it. What's happening in Libya is an abomination to humanity. Of course, you cannot be selling people, black people especially, in this current generation in exchange for funds. But to unpack what's happening in Libya myself, I question three things. Number one, why is it that these people are in Libya? Number two, why is it that these people are not in their original countries? Number three, what is making people travel along the Mediterranean trying to sneak into Europe? Of course, the real solution is, or the real answer to to that question is, slavery is existing in their countries of origin. That's why they are running away from their countries of origin, looking for refuge or freedom in Europe. And in the process, they pass through the Mediterranean. That's why they get caught up in Libya. So it's you are running away from slavery, falling into slavery. I don't think any human being would run away from their original country, going into Europe if everything was fine at home. These people are being intimidated. These people are living the economy of their countries is not doing well to survive their families. So they are running away from slavery to seek refuge in another country. And in the process, they get captured by Libyan people who enslave them even the more. But the situation in Libya is just being exposed. But a lot of African countries are doing it. A lot of European countries are doing it. They're just, slavery is still existing.
How does slavery affect the community?
Slavery exists through forced labor, meaning to say you get this person to work for you with minimum wages or with no wages at all, based on their inferiority. So that's where slavery comes from. The first thing that slavery does, it kills the confidence of our people. Most of African people are not confident. They have this belief that a white man is superior. So they are not confident. Even myself, up to today, I still think somehow that white people are superior because of the slavery they've created with our forefathers. They tortured them. They really, I think we are going to talk about the types of slavery as time goes on, but it makes our people feel inferior. It kills the confidence of our people and also limits opportunities for our people. The reason why Africa is the poorest continent of the world is because of the effects of slavery. We can unpack that later as we go on.
Okay, and then let's talk about how does it affect education, yeah, success.
Okay. Steve Biko said that the greatest weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. I think slave traders played a main role in creating ignorance amongst the academics or the people who call themselves the educated. We find ourselves in a situation where Africa has the most ignorant, educated people. It is because of slavery. They are educated, but they are very ignorant. Why? Because the slave system in Africa has created a scenario whereby people only focus about themselves. Me, myself, and I. That's the mindset of a slave master which has been imposed on the African people. If you look at countries like China, China used to be a very poor country, but because they managed to overcome slavery, if, if you look at the education system of China, those students, they learn in a way, they teach them to learn about what I do is not about me, it's about the country. Hence, they invest more in the country. But Africa, everyone is about themselves. No one is investing in Africa. The only people we have in Africa are sellouts. People who sell out, people making their own money, their own investments. They don't focus on building the continent. And it all starts with education. For example, if you look at the education we're receiving today, it's an abomination. For example, I'm a pharmacist. I'm studying pharmacy. But I've been studying history of Hitler since grade 1. I've been doing useless things, parts of a grasshopper, since I was a child. But I don't need that as a pharmacist. If you compare our education with the education in Britain or Europe, those people, they study the critical things. If you want to be a medical doctor, they will teach you to do surgery from maybe if you are grade 2 or grade 3. So that by the time you reach varsity, you already have the knowledge. But African people, we have people who've graduated without any knowledge. It's effects of slavery. That's why we're not growing. Education has become a joke in Africa because the education system we have in Africa is really not conducive. And it's all because of the effects of slavery.
And then, what do you think? Do you think it's important for our generation to know about slavery?
Very important, very important. First of all, Harriet Tubman said, I freed 1,000 slaves, but I could have freed 1,000 more only if they knew they were slaves. So one thing I've realized about our generation is people don't know they are slaves. They think that's the way to live life. That's the kind of life a normal human being lives. Because the slave master has put it in their brains that, look, this is who you are inferior, you can never make it. So if you look at our people, for example, in Africa, they like to imitate more of Americans. They want to be like Americans. That's a slavery mindset. Because they feel they are inferior, they want to be like the Americans. So it's very important for our people to really understand and have this deep understanding about slavery. Because if you look at African problems, like I've been telling you, they were caused by slavery, whereby most of African people think they are superior compared to other Africans. Just because I'm Nigerian, I think I'm better than a Kenyan. That's the mindset of slavery. So it's because our people don't really know about the effects of slavery. If you knew the effects of slavery, you would make it your point to ensure that you understand your identity. Because slavery all started as a matter of identity. White people identifying themselves as superior and identifying us as inferior, hence enslaving us. So young people need to really understand what slavery is in order to solve the problems that affect Africa. And as far as I know, young people in Africa really don't know the depths of slavery. And it's very important for them to start unpacking what slavery is. Yeah.
So, do you know of any types of slavery in the modern world?
Very many. There are very many types of slavery. Look, the white master was very smart. Um, when this man called William Wilberforce, he was 24 years old, of course. He's the first man who introduced this. He tabled the idea of abolishing slavery in the European Parliament. 24-year-old man, and he convinced the world that really slavery was a sin according to Christian values. But the white master, he was very smart. He said, no, I'm not just going to let go of my idea of slavery like that. If they're abolishing the physical slavery whereby they could put black people on chains, they had to introduce a new kinds of slavery which are not physical. The first slavery, Steve Biko spoke of it, the mind of the oppressed. Most of our people are suffering the mindset slavery, the type of slavery of the mind. They don't know they are slaves, but they are slaves. I will tell you an example. In South Africa, people don't have land. And they think that it's normal not to have land. It's a slavery mindset. Another type of mindset is like I've told you before, other Africans thinking they are more superior. I think that also speaks more of the physical kind of slavery being imposed by Africans on Africans. The white men now shifted slavery from the kind of slave trade by a white master to a black person, but now it's happening amongst Africans. The type of slavery we have today is Africans enslaving Africans. For example, it is very easy for a European to travel in the African continent than an African to travel. We have the best immigration policies. We have the most strictest border policies in Africa. I think that's a great kind of slavery of the mind. Our leaders have failed to understand slavery, and they've created a situation where our people have to continue to suffer. Because look at the African person, for example. $1 is equivalent to 15 rand. It means that a South African person must work 15 times to reach the standard of the standard of an American. Because for every $1, the South African must make 15 rand. Meaning to say we are still enslaved economically. That's my second part of slavery, the economic slavery. That's the main slavery which is running in Africa as we speak. And our recent leaders have tried to open it up to us, to show us the effects of economic slavery. There is no land. That means black people cannot farm, cannot engage in business. We have a country like South Africa, for example. 80% of the economy is owned by the minority. Black people own 4% of the land. They cannot engage in the economy of the country. They are still working for the white master, even after apartheid. So they are still living in the economic slavery kind of world. Black people are still slaves of the economy of the white people. So economic slavery is number two. The other type of slavery is education slavery. This education system in Africa was created purposely to enslave black people, to keep them ignorant, to keep them off topic from the things that really matter. Because if you see us, I'm a student myself, but most of the things I've learned about Africa, I've not learned about them in the lecture hall. I've learned about them through engaging in the university environment. But if you go to the lecture, really, they don't really teach you about the real issues that affect Africa. So education was created as a way to enslave the minds of our people. So education itself is a smarter way of enslaving people. In apartheid, they had this thing that they called the Bantu education. The white people were not stupid to introduce Bantu education. They were smart, and they had a very clever plan to introduce Bantu education. Meaning to say they had to introduce that type of education to continue keeping the black people enslaved, to continue teaching that a black man is inferior. So that's another kind of slavery. The other kind of slavery is, how can I put it? Let me say it's a slavery in terms of resource management, né? Whereby I could link it with the economic slavery, but I'm mentioning resource management purposely. If you look at Africa, it's a lie when they say that we are the richest continent. It's a lie. We are not the richest. We are the continent with the best resources. Because wealth is the ability of using resources, using your own resources to bring about a change. Now, Africans, we've always spoken about we are the richest continent. We are the richest continent, but we don't have any wealth. Meaning to say all our resources go to Europe, which makes Europe the rich continent. As we continue being poor. So we are slaves of our own resources. Our own resources are one of the main reasons why there is war in Africa. The reason there is war in DRC Congo is because of the gold, because of the diamonds. The reason there is economic sanctions in Zimbabwe, the dollar dropping, is because of the diamonds and the land. The reasons why Uganda, for example, is suffering economic slavery is because of its resources, the oil. The reason why Libya, why Muammar Gaddafi was killed, and the Libyans currently, as we speak, they are suffering themselves, is because of the oil. So the resources of Africa have also played a role in enslaving us. So yeah, those are my personal definitions of the types of slavery.
Okay, and then in what way has SMU assisted international students from war-stricken countries in terms of education and empowerment?
Okay, I'm Emmanuel Kiyonga. I'm from Uganda, and there's something that people don't know about me. I'm a refugee myself in this country. It means to say I ran away from my country because of political reasons or other reasons. But before I came to this university, I was a very good academic student. I was a good performer. And after passing my matric, I was told that I'm not allowed to go to university in South Africa because I'm a refugee. I went to a lot of universities with my marks. I was not taken. The only university which opened its doors was SMU. When I got accepted at SMU, they didn't question me or they didn't ask, where do you come from? What type of a foreigner are you? They just accepted me because of the fact that I'm from a disadvantaged environment. So SMU really has opened doors to the international students. Okay, there are types of international students that people out there might not know. There are international students who, for example, let's say I'm from Nigeria. My father is a professor, meaning to say we are doing well at home. Then I come to South Africa. That means I'm different from any international student who left his country running away from war as a refugee. Those are two different people. But what the main challenge we've received is that your government, South African government, has failed to understand the different kinds of international students. They treat all of them as international students. I also believe that the term international student is an abomination to our African culture. I mean, how can you call me international if I'm an African? I don't really find any sense in international, in the term international students. I think we should be defined as African students because we face the same challenges as African students. The international students are those who come from, let's say, England, Canada, but a person from Zimbabwe, then you refer to them as international students. I think this also brings us to answer the question of our society understanding what slavery is. Those are impacts of slavery, where you don't know how to differentiate who is a brother and who is a non-brother. Okay? Now, South Africa, for example, South Africa is a very easy country for international students who are outside Africa. If I'm from Canada and I want to go study in South Africa, it's very easy. I won't struggle. But if I'm from Uganda and I want to study in South Africa, it's going to be it's going to be a war, it's going to be a challenge, except SMU. That's why I always tell my friends that Sifako Makato Health Science University is the best university in Africa. Why? We cannot define best university based on the resources the universities have. They say, okay, I don't want to mention other universities, but they say some universities are the best because they produce better research, they produce better graduates, they have better resources. But if you look at those universities, they really classify students. The only students who can afford those universities are students who are in the first class, the rich class of people. If you're from the poor class, you can't afford those universities. Then how do you say they are the best? The reason we say SMU is the best is because it can take a ghetto child, a child who has zero, nothing, and give them a qualification to be doctors and pharmacists. Because when I become a pharmacist, of course, I must go back to my country and give back to the country. And of course, this university will always be a main, the main drive to that success. Okay, so that's my perspective of SMU. It's been very open. We have our own international student organization, which is called SUMWISO here. SUMWISO is an organization which was formed by the university to assist international students in terms of relating. We even have Africa Day celebrations whereby South African local students engage with us. We share food. They teach us their language. So the brotherhood is just on another level. So we feel very welcomed in this university. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so do you have any request or a message for countries that are affected by slavery?
First of all, countries that are affected by slavery, those are African countries, all of them. Since I'm doing this interview in South Africa, I have a message for South Africa because South Africa is an enslaved state. First of all, let South Africa understand that it's enslaved. Because one thing about South African people, since 1994 or after post-apartheid, South African black people thought they are liberated. They thought they are free all of a sudden. But they are not. The slavery actually keeps on growing and becoming stronger. Because now, the kind of slavery in South Africa, it's no longer the physical one where you can see that no, white people are separated from black people. It's now hidden. It's now psychological. It's hidden through the economy, through the infrastructure, through the institutions, government institutions, whereby white people are still superior. Okay? So African people, African nations which are affected by slavery, they need to understand first that they are enslaved. Because for you to solve a problem, you need to identify the problem first. Firstly, you are enslaved. You need to admit you are enslaved. And you need to accept that you are enslaved in Africa. Number two, African countries which are affected by slavery, they need to accept, they need to know that they are African countries. They are not special countries. Because most African countries, because they are doing well economically, they think they are more special than other countries which are struggling economically. Now, you cannot have economic freedom on your own. South Africa did not defeat apartheid on its own. It had tried on its own, but it failed until it incorporated all the African states to defeat apartheid. Economic slavery cannot be defeated as a South Africa cannot defeat it as a sole nation. It needs to incorporate all other African countries. Now, in South Africa, for example, they are speaking about the expropriation of land without compensation. Okay, what happened in Zimbabwe is when they expropriated land, sanctions were put on Zimbabwe, the economy dropped, and everything in Zimbabwe became a mess. Okay, the same scenario could happen in South Africa if land is expropriated from the white people, the white farmers. It could happen. Now, recently, Cyril Ramaphosa signed a free trade area agreement in the African continent, whereby African people can be able to do business freely. Meaning to say this will also impose the idea of killing the borders. But I was shocked that most of the majority of the South African population really don't agree with this idea. But the reasoning behind the killing of borders and creating a free trade area is, in case you expropriate land and the white people get angry and then they put sanctions on South Africa, the economy of South Africa drops. If the borders are open, it's very easy for South African people who are in the sanction to do business with other African states. This will eliminate the effect of sanction which was put on Zimbabwe. If Zimbabwe, for example, in the time Zimbabwe expropriated land, if there was no border restrictions on the Zim people, we couldn't have seen the effects of the sanctions, because the Zim people could have moved freely to South Africa, do business freely to Namibia and Mozambique. But because of the border restrictions, the expropriation of land cost Zimbabwe. And it's going to really take a long time for it to pick up. So African states need to understand they're Africans. They need to understand they're enslaved. And now speaking about other African countries besides South Africa, let's take an example, Nigeria. Nigeria had the highest number of people who were caught up in Libya and being enslaved. Nigeria and Sierra Leone and Ghana. The reason is because those countries are practicing slavery indirectly. Boko Haram, which is killing the Nigerian people, is enslaving them. Of course, they are running away from them. And then I saw some governments busy speaking on TV saying, those people must come back. They are even sending planes to fetch those people back. Now tell me one thing. If I'm running away from you, and then I get caught up somewhere there, and then you want to return me to yourself, what does it mean? It means you are going to kill me, or you are going to enslave me more. So those African countries which are enslaving people, and their people have been caught up in Libya, they must not be involved in the actions of bringing back those people. If someone is Nigerian and is been enslaved, caught in slavery in Libya, let them be assisted by a country, let's say by Kenya, not Nigeria. Because if that person goes back to Nigeria or wherever, the government is going to destroy them. They are going to torture them. They are going to ask them questions. Why were you leaving? You understand? So that's the only way we can eliminate the situation of slavery, according to my perspective.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Manuel. Do you have anything to say? Any last words?
Look, my last words are, we are African people. African people need to understand who they are. We need to understand what our identity is. Because A slave master is very smart. Slave masters, they know who they are. White people, they know they are white. That's why all these problems of slavery, apartheid, discrimination, racism, it all started with white people. It did not start with black people. Africans were so welcoming. When they came into our continent, we welcomed them with open arms. We're willing to engage them. We loved them. But because they came in after we welcomed them, they decided to take advantage of our politeness and our love towards them. They started to kill our leaders. They started dividing us in different tribes. For example, Swahili. Swahili is believed to be the original language of African people. That's why most of the languages, they relate more with Swahili. But the reason we speak different languages is because they, white people, they divided us, creating different tribes amongst ourselves. Okay? Now, themselves, they are very smart. They know who they are. In 1800, they had a meeting in Berlin, Germany, where they discussed how they are going to divide Africa into borders, where they gave Britain its colonies, they gave Portugal its colonies, they gave Belgium its colonies, in an agenda of dividing us. Okay? The main role of dividing us was to continue exploiting our minerals and exploiting us, and to continue keeping us into slavery. Now, we all know that once you are great in life, you will always be attacked because you are great. The only reason why black people, and Africans in particular, are being attacked and enslaved over and over again is because they are great people. These slave masters, they fear us. They know that once we unite and once we take out our full potential, we are very dangerous. That's why they do whatever it takes to divide us and to enslave us. So African people need to understand their identity. Their identity is they are great, they are wise, they are smart, they are powerful. African people. They are, for example, technology started in Africa. Its effect. Industrialism started in Africa. Medicine started in Africa. All these advancements in society, they started in Africa. If you look at Egypt, the building of the pyramids, we all know that the original human being was black. I mean, they found the oldest skull here in South Africa of the oldest skull of the human being was black. So all these other races, it's a fact, and unfortunately we have to speak about it. All these other races came from our race. Because we are the original, they want to destroy the original by continuing to enslave us. The other message I want to put out there is, not every white person is a slave master. Because it's actually, what's the president of America? Lincoln. What was his name? I think his name was Lincoln. The president of America who abolished slavery. He was a white man. Not all white people are slave masters. But there are those few, let me say those majority, who push for the agenda of slavery. So when we are dealing with the issue of slavery, let's not attack white people as a whole. We need to identify those few ones. For example, the apartheid government in South Africa, that was the slave master which had to be dealt with. And by the way, it's still influential even up to today because apartheid is still existing. So those are the ones we still have to deal with in order to eliminate slavery. So African people, let's identify ourselves. Let's have confidence in ourselves. Let's stop undermining ourselves. And let's stop feeling superior over other Africans. Africa can only bring about solutions to its challenges as a unity. On its own, it can't do anything. On its own, there is no African nation which can have absolute freedom on its own. The only solution to African problem is kill the borders, make Africa one, create a single African currency, make Africa one. There's this mindset among African states that are doing well. For example, let me say Nigeria. Nigeria did not sign the trade area agreement because it claims that if people are able to travel freely, they are going to all flock into Nigeria and kill disadvantaged East local people. You see, that kind of thinking is what's killing us, whereby African people are thinking about themselves. In 1994, before South Africa received its independence from apartheid government, Uganda was not the richest country in the world, but Uganda played a very major role. The black people in South Africa, they are the poorest blacks in Africa. Yet their country is the richest in Africa. Does it make sense to you? Whereby you have a country which with a big economy like this, but the original people, the blacks, the Africans, are the poorest. Black Africans, black South Africans don't have land. The only thing they can have is a small house in a township, Soshanguve, with a small house, and that's it. But if you go to other countries like Uganda, yes, we don't have a big economy, but the Ugandans have land. For example, myself, I have a big land in Uganda, a very big farm in Uganda. Of course, it makes me rich, which differs from South Africa. So I think we need to educate our people to say that when you think you are free, you are not free indeed. We need to redefine slavery. As I told you initially, that our people have been told that they are free. They've been enslaved in the mind. They think they are free, but they are not free. They think they own economic power, but they do not. So we need to educate each other, unite each other under one agenda in order to free Africa. That's my message.
Wow, thank you, Manuela. So it means we must be a one nation.
One nation. Simple, like United States of America. United States of America copied that idea from us. Initially, Africa was one state, one continent, which was doing very well. So united. Then the United States copied from our culture of a united Africa. Then they took it to America. Once they united their states, then they came to us and divided us and enslaved our people. They took them into slavery. So they just copied. Everything you see in Europe, by the way, in America, was copied from Africa. All the buildings, the stadiums, the nice infrastructure they have was built by our people who they took into slavery. They took our people into slavery. They are the ones who built the bricks, the engineers who constructed everything, who planned Europe and America, the beauty of America. It was our people who did that, the Africans. Which also brings me, by the way, to explain the economic slavery issue, whereby African states are owing too much money with these European states. For example, South Africa is owing the World Bank a lot of money, okay? But we need to eliminate all this on the debate of the Europeans and the Americans must pay back the blood which was lost during slave trade. And how can they pay that back? They must wipe away all these debts in order to free our people economically. Because we are the ones who built Europe. We are the ones who built America. Even our people, some of our people are still there. They still don't even know where they come from. They are still there. All these effects, we need to correct them by abolishing the loans and these huge amounts of money that Africa is owing Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel, for everything and for everything that you have said about slave trade. And to everyone out there, including our generation, I hope you learned a lot. And please subscribe our page and don't forget to say #WeAreSMU.